Have you ever felt stuck in the same patterns of self-doubt, no matter how hard you try to change? Have you noticed that even when you set big goals, your own mind whispers, you can't do it? Today, we are going to break that cycle. This is about learning how to build real mental strength and unshakable confidence. The kind that doesn't depend on circumstances, but comes from within you. If you've been battling fear, hesitation, or self-sabotage, this message is for you. Close your eyes and listen closely to the voice inside your head. The one that's always speaking, always whispering, always commenting on everything you do. That voice has been with you since you were a child. It tells you what's possible, and it also tells you what's not. It is the narrator of your story, and most people never stop to question whether that narrator is even telling the truth. They just accept the commentary as fact, and so they live their entire lives inside a cage made of words and beliefs. Think about how many times that voice has stopped you. You wanted to try something new, but it whispered, "What if you fail?" You wanted to speak up, but it said, "No one will listen." You wanted to push yourself, but it reminded you of every mistake you've ever made, and in that moment, you surrendered your power to a story. Not reality, not truth, just a repetitive thought pattern that has been replaying in your mind for years. The first step to mental strength is realizing that this voice is not you. You are the awareness behind the voice. You are the one who listens, the one who observes, the one who chooses whether to believe what it says or to rise above it. The greatest shift in your life begins the moment you create distance between yourself and that inner dialogue. When you can hear it and say, "That's just a thought, not a fact," you reclaim your power. Consider this: if a stranger followed you around every single day, criticizing you, doubting you, telling you that you weren't enough, how long before you would tell them to stop? Yet when that same voice comes from within, you allow it to continue, and sometimes you even protect it, saying, "That's just the way I am." But that's not who you are. That's who you've been trained to be. That voice has been shaped by your past experiences, your upbringing, your failures, your pain. It has been conditioned by teachers, parents, friends, society. Every single time someone told you that you weren't capable, that voice recorded it. And now, without questioning it, you let it play on repeat. The truth is, your brain doesn't care whether a thought is empowering or destructive. If you repeat it often enough, it becomes familiar, and what is familiar becomes comfortable. The brain loves comfort. It loves predictability. So even negative self-talk, even destructive patterns, become automatic because the brain recognizes them as safe and familiar. That's why breaking free requires conscious effort. You must begin to catch the voice in the act. Every time it says, "You can't," you stop and say, "Who decided that?" Every time it says, "You're not enough," you challenge it. Compared to what? Compared to who? You begin to notice how many of those thoughts aren't even yours. They're borrowed from people who projected their own limitations onto you. This is where mental strength is built, not in lifting weights or pretending to be tough, but in mastering the conversations within. Confidence is not about never doubting. Confidence is about doubting less and believing more in the vision of who you want to become. And that begins with changing the language you use on yourself. Imagine two people standing side by side. One of them wakes up every morning and tells themselves, "I can't do this. I always mess up. I'll never succeed." The other wakes up and says, "I can figure this out. I'm learning every day. I have what it takes." Which one is more likely to persist, to take risks, to keep going when life gets hard? The difference is not intelligence, not talent, not resources. It's dialogue. One has turned their inner voice into an enemy, while the other has trained it to become an ally. And here is the secret: you don't silence the voice by force. You retrain it. You feed it new language. You become intentional about the words you repeat. Because the subconscious mind learns through repetition, not through single moments of inspiration. If you wake up every morning and repeat a new story, something powerful happens. The old pathways in your brain begin to weaken. The old narrative loses its grip. And the new story, the one of strength, of courage, of confidence, begins to wire itself into your mind until it feels just as natural, just as automatic as the old one. You begin to notice subtle changes. You catch yourself in the mirror, and instead of tearing yourself apart, you speak with kindness. You face a challenge, and instead of immediately thinking of what could go wrong, you start to ask, what if this works out? You walk into a room, and instead of shrinking, you stand tall and breathe deeper. And all of this happens because you made the decision to master the dialogue within. There is no greater freedom than the moment you realize you are not chained to the voice in your head, that you can interrupt it, reshape it, and use it to build the life you desire. The world outside will always throw challenges at you, but the greatest battlefield has always been within. If you can win there, if you can train your thoughts to align with your vision, then no obstacle outside of you can defeat you. Your mind is like a garden. Whatever seeds you plant, whether positive or negative, will eventually grow if they are given enough attention and repetition. Most people are walking through life unaware of the seeds they are planting, unaware of the words and images they are allowing to sink into their subconscious. They speak to themselves with doubt. They rehearse failure in their imagination. They repeat the same story of limitations day after day. And then they wonder why their life feels stuck in the same cycle. It is not because they are incapable. It is because they are rehearsing the wrong story so often that it has become the only reality their brain knows how to create. The truth is, your brain does not distinguish between what is vividly imagined and what is experienced. When you repeat a thought, when you rehearse a scenario in your mind, when you allow an emotion to replay again and again, your brain begins to wire itself to make that thought, that emotion, that identity, the default. That is the power of repetition. This is why so many people stay trapped in their past. They are not living their present moment. They are reliving the same mental movie over and over until it becomes their identity. If you constantly tell yourself, I am unlucky, I am weak, I always fail, those statements become instructions to the subconscious mind. The subconscious doesn't argue. It doesn't debate. It simply accepts what is repeated and begins shaping your behaviors, your habits, even your posture and tone of voice to match the story. That is how beliefs are born. Not because they are true, but because they have been rehearsed. Belief is nothing more than a thought repeated so many times that the brain accepts it as fact. Now imagine what happens when you begin to flip the script. Imagine you begin to repeat, I am strong, I am capable, I am resilient, I always find a way. At first it feels strange. Your old voice says, that's not who you are. You're lying to yourself. And yes, in the beginning it feels uncomfortable because your brain is wired for the old pattern. But repetition is stronger than resistance. The more you say it, the more you visualize it, the more you feel the energy of that new identity, the more your brain begins to lay down new neural connections. And eventually, the story that once felt false begins to feel familiar. The belief begins to feel natural. The identity begins to feel real. Think of an athlete preparing for competition. They don't practice once and hope for the best. They drill the same movements, the same strategies, again and again, until their body and mind know it instinctively. They train until it is automatic. Your thoughts work the same way. Confidence is not built from a single motivational moment. Mental strength is not built from a single decision. They are built from training your thoughts daily, from rehearsing your identity until it is imprinted into the deepest layers of your mind. If you want to rewire your brain, you must become intentional about repetition. Start by noticing the story you have been telling yourself. Where do you hear yourself say, I can't? Where do you catch yourself repeating, I always fail, or I'm not ready? And then begin to replace it with a different phrase, a different image, a different script. Write it down. Say it out loud. Picture it in your mind every day. This is not wishful thinking. This is neuroscience. The more you repeat a new thought with emotional intensity, the more your brain wires itself to accept it as reality. Consider the way a musician learns to play. At first, the fingers stumble, the melody feels clumsy, but after hours, days, months of repetition, something extraordinary happens. The hands no longer need to think. The music flows naturally. The repetition has transformed the impossible into the instinctive. That is what happens when you rewire your mind. At first it feels forced, awkward, almost fake. But the longer you commit to it, the more automatic it becomes, until one day you wake up and realize the identity you once dreamed about has become who you are. The challenge is that most people give up too soon. They affirm a new belief for a week and then say, it doesn't work. They visualize their future self a few times and then return to their old habits. They don't realize that their old patterns of thinking were repeated for years, maybe decades. Of course, the brain resists. of course the old story feels stronger. But persistence always wins. Repetition always rewires. The brain is plastic, always changing, always adapting. With enough commitment, the new story will override the old one. And here is the secret that accelerates the process. It is not enough to just repeat words. You must feel them. When you repeat a thought with emotion, the brain records it more deeply. When you say, "I am strong," while breathing deeply and standing tall, the body begins to memorize that strength. When you visualize yourself succeeding and allow yourself to feel the joy of it, as if it is already happening, the brain cannot tell the difference between imagination and reality. It wires for success as if it has already occurred. That is how you collapse the distance between who you are and who you want to be. Every day is an opportunity to practice. When fear shows up, repeat courage. When doubt whispers, repeat belief. When failure happens, repeat resilience. Over time, you are not just repeating words, you are repeating an identity. And that identity is what shapes your actions, your habits, your destiny. Fear, doubt. These are the two companions that seem to follow every dreamer, every risk taker, every person who dares to step outside the boundaries of the familiar. They whisper in the dark moments. They tighten the chest before you take a step. They cloud the mind with what ifs. And most people live their entire lives letting these two companions drive the car, dictate the choices, and hold them back from what could have been. Yet fear and doubt are not enemies. They are signals. They are invitations. They are the proof that you are standing on the edge of growth. Think about it. When you repeat the same day again and again, when you stay in your comfort zone, fear does not visit you. Doubt doesn't knock on your door. You feel safe, but you also feel stuck. The moment you decide to break free, to speak up, to try something new, that is when fear arrives. That is when doubt begins its questioning. Why? Because your mind is wired to protect you. It sees the unknown as danger, even when the unknown is the very thing you need to grow. Fear is simply the alarm system of your nervous system saying, "This is unfamiliar." It is not proof that you shouldn't proceed. It is proof that you are evolving. Most people misinterpret fear. They believe it means stop. They believe it means turn back. They believe it means they are weak. But strength is not the absence of fear. Strength is the decision to move through it. Confidence is not built in the absence of doubt. Confidence is forged when you feel the doubt and still step forward anyway. Every person you admire, every leader, every innovator, every champion has felt fear and doubt. The difference is not that they didn't feel it. The difference is that they didn't let it paralyze them. They recognized it, breathed through it, and kept moving. Picture yourself standing before a door you have never opened. On the other side could be failure, but on the other side could also be your greatest breakthrough. Fear will always tell you about the failure. It rarely tells you about the possibility. Doubt will paint vivid pictures of what could go wrong, but it will rarely remind you of what could go right. This is why mental strength requires a new relationship with fear. Instead of running from it, you begin to lean into it. Instead of interpreting it as danger, you interpret it as growth. Fear is not the signal to stop. It is the signal that you are exactly where you need to be. Doubt, too, can be transformed. Doubt is the mind asking questions. What if you're not ready? What if you fail? What if you're not enough? Most people hear those questions and surrender to them. But what if you turn them around? What if you answered doubt with better questions? What if I am ready? What if this time I succeed? What if I am stronger than I think? The brain responds to the questions you ask it. If you ask it why you will fail, it will give you 1,000 reasons. If you ask it why you can succeed, it will find evidence of your strength, your resilience, your capacity to rise. Doubt, then, becomes a tool. It sharpens your vision. It pushes you to prepare, to train, to focus. It doesn't have to be the voice that stops you. It can be the voice that challenges you to grow. One of the most powerful shifts you can make is to become the observer of your fear rather than the prisoner of it. When you feel it rise in your chest, when you feel your palms sweat, when your mind races, pause. Take a breath. Notice it. Name it. Say, this is fear. This is doubt. This is my body responding to the unknown. The moment you observe it, you create distance. You are no longer consumed by it. You are watching it. You are standing above it. And from that place of awareness, you can choose how to respond. Imagine standing on a stage before thousands of people. Your heart races, your body shakes. Your mind says, "You can't do this." That is fear trying to protect you from judgment. But if you breathe, if you allow the sensation to pass through without attaching a story to it, you realize something powerful. The energy of fear is the same energy as excitement. The difference is the meaning you attach to it. One interpretation paralyzes you. The other fuels you. If you decide to see that pounding heart not as danger, but as readiness, if you decide to see those butterflies not as weakness, but as energy, suddenly fear becomes fuel. Suddenly doubt becomes a reminder that you are stepping into something bigger than yourself. Every great breakthrough in human history was born in the presence of fear. Every invention, every discovery, every leap forward required someone to face the unknown with trembling hands and an uncertain heart. Fear was there, doubt was there, but so was courage. Courage does not erase fear. Courage carries it. Courage looks fear in the eye and says, "You may walk with me, but you will not decide for me." That is the essence of mental strength. When you begin to live this way, fear no longer shrinks your world, it expands it. Doubt no longer cages you, it sharpens you. You stop waiting for the day when you will feel ready, when the fear will vanish, when the doubt will disappear. That day never comes. What comes is your decision to act anyway, to breathe anyway, to move anyway. And every time you do, something incredible happens. Fear loses a little more of its grip. Doubt loses a little more of its power. And you gain a little more strength, a little more confidence, a little more freedom. There is a version of you that already exists in your imagination, a future self that walks with certainty. speaks with confidence, and radiates strength. You have glimpsed this person in your daydreams, in those quiet moments when you imagine what life could be like if you were free from hesitation, if you fully trusted yourself, if you no longer carried the weight of your doubts. That version of you is not a fantasy. It is a blueprint. It is a vision of what you are capable of becoming, but only if you choose to embody it now. The mistake most people make is waiting. They wait until they feel ready, until the fear goes away, until the perfect moment arrives. They tell themselves, "When I have more experience, then I'll feel confident. When I achieve success, then I'll be strong. When the right opportunity comes, then I'll step into who I want to be." But life does not work that way. Readiness does not appear first. Confidence is not delivered to you as a reward. Confidence is created through action. Strength is forged in the fire of commitment, not in the comfort of waiting. The future self you dream of will not arrive one day on its own. It must be born through you, now, in this moment, with every decision you make. Think of how an actor prepares for a role. They do not wait until the cameras roll to decide who the character is. They step into it long before, rehearsing the movements, the voice, the energy, until it becomes second nature. They embody the role until they are no longer pretending. They are living it. This is how you step into your future self. You rehearse it every day. You walk as they would walk. You speak as they would speak. You carry yourself with the posture, the certainty, the focus of that version of you. At first it feels like acting. At first it feels unnatural, but repetition makes it real. Consistency makes it truth. Imagine waking up tomorrow and deciding to carry yourself as if you are already the confident, powerful version of you that you envision. How would you breathe? How would you stand? What words would you use? What thoughts would you allow? How would you respond when challenges come? If you practice this daily, something profound begins to happen. Your brain does not know the difference between imagination and reality. The more you embody this future self in the present moment, the more your brain wires itself to believe it is who you already are. Slowly, the outer world begins to align with the inner reality you have rehearsed. There is a gap between who you are today and who you want to be. Most people believe they must wait until life fills that gap for them. Until success comes, until recognition comes, until they feel a sudden surge of confidence. But the truth is, you bridge that gap by stepping into it. You collapse the distance between your present and your future by acting as if you are already there. The way you think, the way you speak, the way you carry yourself becomes the evidence your brain needs to accept the new identity. Of course, the old self will resist. The voice of doubt will whisper, "This isn't you. You're pretending. You're not ready." But every transformation feels uncomfortable in the beginning. The body resists new movement. The mind resists new patterns because it has been programmed for familiarity. If you can push through that discomfort and remain consistent, the resistance fades. What once felt forced becomes natural. What once felt like a role becomes who you are. Think of a time when you learned a new skill, something that at first felt impossible. Maybe it was speaking in public. Maybe it was learning a language. Maybe it was playing an instrument. At the beginning, you stumbled. You felt out of place. But with practice, you became fluent. The same principle applies to confidence and strength. They are skills, not gifts. They are rehearsed identities, not accidents. Your future self is simply a skill set you have not yet fully embodied. Every day, you have a choice. You can wake up and live as the old self, repeating the same habits, the same thoughts, the same limitations. Or you can wake up and live as the future self, rehearsing the confidence, practicing the courage, embodying the strength you want to carry. The more you choose the second option, the faster your reality changes. The beauty of this process is that you don't need permission. You don't need anyone to validate the future self you are creating. You don't need to explain it or justify it. You simply need to live it. People will notice. They may even resist at first, because when you change, it forces others to confront their own limitations. But if you remain consistent, if you continue to walk as your future self, eventually the world adapts. The opportunities that match your new identity begin to appear. The relationships that resonate with your new energy begin to find you. The life you once imagined begins to unfold before you, not because you waited for it, but because you embodied it. There is no magic moment when the fear will vanish, when the doubt will disappear, when the universe will signal, now you're ready. The only moment you have is this one. And in this moment, you have the choice to step into the version of you that you want to become. Not tomorrow, not next year, not someday. Now, you have seen how your inner dialogue shapes the limits of your world, how repetition rewires your mind, how fear and doubt can transform from enemies into allies, and how stepping into the identity of your future self brings that vision into reality. Mental strength is not some gift given to a chosen few, and confidence is not a trait you are either born with or without. They are both choices. They are both practices. They are both disciplines that you build day after day. Thought after thought, action after action. Every challenge you face is an invitation to rise above the old self. Every fear is a signal that you are stepping into new territory. Every doubt is a test that asks whether you will return to your past identity or create a new one. And every repetition of a new story, every conscious thought you choose, every moment you embody the strength you desire, is another brick laid in the foundation of your unshakable self. The truth is, the life you want is not waiting for you in the distance. It is waiting for you to claim it in the present. The power is not out there. It has always been within you. The moment you take command of your thoughts, the moment you commit to the practice of strength, the moment you decide to walk as your future self, the world begins to bend toward that decision. So rise today with clarity, with courage, and with conviction. Speak to yourself with words that build. Repeat the identity you choose, walk boldly through fear, and step into the life you know you are meant to live. The power has always been in your hands, and today is the moment you decide to use it.